Hey losers, it's me. Welcome back to my channel. It's me and Baron, the filthy spot stealer, who now is being forced to sit with me because he made a grave error in stealing my chair. No, Baron, stay, please. Hi, welcome. This is my end of the month wrap up for the last 2 weeks of the month, and boy, let me just tell you right now, it's going to be a long one. Sorry about that. I'm back. Something about my camera just didn't look right. But here I am. I'm back again. And there goes my air conditioner, so it's going to be noisy. Okay, so let's see. Got my stats. So I'm not going to be talking about 24 books here. I'm only going to be talking about the books that I read in the second half of the month. If you're curious what I read in the first half of the month, I did a wrap up. Close to the halfway point of the month. So, you know, make sure to check that out. But in total, these stats are for the total for the whole month. In total, I read 24 books this month. I participated in Escape the Readathon, which is hosted by Books with Lexi. This was really such a interesting experience. You really didn't know what was going to happen from day to day. The prompts, a lot of the prompts were a mystery until you got to the point where you unlocked them. And so a lot of what I read was not what I started out thinking I was going to read. So out of the 24 books, 2 I did end up DNFing, and 22 of these books were off of my TBR. So these are books that I picked off my shelf, books that I owned previous to this year. I read 6,226 pages, which is about 200 pages per day. The genres I read this month, I read 15 horror books, 3 thrillers, 2 sci-fi books, 2 nonfiction books, 1 true crime book, which I guess technically is nonfiction, but you know, and 1 fantasy book. I'm not going to go through I'm not going to list the years like I normally do, but I will say the oldest book that I read came out in 1993, and the most recent book I read was a 2024 release. And then I read 22 books for the Read What You Own challenge, which brings me to 95 books. I'm 95% complete with this fucking challenge. And if you watched any of my vlogs, well, I don't know, I mean, watch my vlogs that I did during this trying time during the Escape the Readathon. I did buy some books, so I kind of, I don't know, I wouldn't say I failed the challenge, although I guess like part of the challenge is to not buy books until you've read 100, but I, you know, made it to almost 100 books without buying any. And if you watch my vlog, like, I didn't intentionally go out and seek these books. It was kind of a treat. It was kind of a treat. So I'm just gonna keep telling myself it was a treat. It was a treat. It was a little bit of a treat. I mean, it was a treat. So that was nice. And so I only have 5 books to read next month until I'm done with this. And I think I'm gonna make a little bit of, just a tiny video, you know, going through all that stuff. But really, I need to like fucking get on with this because there are many books here today. I will try to make this quick and concise. So First book here is In the River by Jeremy Robert Johnson. This is a novella that was published in 2017. This is really a sad, like, story with some strange elements. There's some body horror, some like folk magic. This is a story that takes place in South America. It's about a father and son who are fishing, and then something terrible happens, and that's all I can tell you. A very big thing happens very early in this book, and to give that away would, you know, be terrible. So this was really good. It was very sad, but it was very good. I also read Husk by Rachel Autumn Deering. This came out in 2016. This is another novella. I read a couple short stories here to try to fulfill prompts as quickly as I could. Man, there are some people on my team, just speed readers. Could not keep up with them. Sometimes I would like open like the Discord chat and it would be like, oh, we've fulfilled this thing, and it's like, I didn't even read one book for this. Crazy. This is a story about Kevin. He's coming home after serving in Afghanistan, and he's like coming back to the house he grew up in with his grandparents. His grandparents are now dead, and he's gonna fix up the house where they lived. There's something strange there. And what I will say about this is that the character work in this is like superb, so excellent. But when it comes to like there's something in the house part, I didn't really understand that, I guess. I'm not sure if this was supposed to be kind of like a metaphor for something that I just like didn't understand or what. But it got to the point where I was reading this, I was nearing the end where there was just a couple pages left, and I was like, oh, this must have a sequel. Because there was only a couple pages left, and like we weren't coming to like a part in the story where there should have been where we were coming up to like a thing, you know? And so yeah, I don't know. I'm a little bit disappointed in the way that this one concluded, especially because the beginning I was like, yes, yes, yes. Like, these are the things that I love about a good novella. Like, when the author absolutely nails like the fucking character development in such a short span of time. You know, that in a novella, it's like you either do or die, right? Like, you have to nail this shit or your novella is gonna be trash. And I felt like she nailed that so well. And so I was really disappointed in how it ended. But I would really like to read more by this author because, like I said, her writing was great. And the like emotion she put into this was so great. So yeah, it's just that the conclusion, I guess, maybe I just didn't understand it. I guess I just don't know. I also read The Haunted Mask by R.L. Stine. This is Goosebumps number, in these newer editions, it doesn't say on the spine. I don't want to spend too much time looking for that. But this is honestly, I think, one of my favorite Goosebumps books. I don't remember reading this one when I was younger, but I remember watching the episodes all the time. This is one of my favorite, like, there was the 2 episodes. My grandma had the VHSs. It was on 2 VHSs. And this is about Carly Beth, who is a little bit of a scaredy cat. And she has these 2 friends. And like, I don't like thinking about it. I'm like, why Carly Beth? Why are you friends with these boys? Because they're so mean to her. Like, they play pranks on her and they're really unkind to her. And for Halloween, she usually picks like kind of like a cutesy funny outfit, but this year she decides she's going to be something spooky. So she goes to this like new shop in town. She finds this very spooky mask, but when she puts the mask on, she gets like almost this like alternate personality, like this different persona. And then also she can't take the mask off. And you know, this is like top tier Goosebumps, I think. Such a good one. I also read The Curse of the Mummy's Tomb, which is number 5. This was just like, that one I read for a super specific prompt. This one was a little bit more vague prompt, so I just picked like the next one in the line of Goosebumps I've been reading. So this is about Gabe, and he is on a family vacation to Egypt. So his uncle is excavating this pyramid, and his parents have to leave unexpectedly, which leaves Gabe with his archaeologist uncle in this pyramid. And Gabe's like super stoked on being able to see this mummy, but then like all of this stuff happens and it's a little bit chaotic and a little bit like, what does it remind me of? Like Tomb Raider, Indiana Jonesy, a little adventure-y and fun and a little bit spooky, not super spooky on on the Goosebump scale, but I feel like it's more of an adventure-y one, but still really fun. Not the best Goosebumps, not the worst Goosebumps. I'd say like solid 3.5, 4 if I were giving it a star rating. Next I have a graphic novel called Revival. This is volume 1, You're Among Friends. This came out in 2012, and this is a horror graphic novel. It says a rural noir. 2 words that my mouth does not want to say. This has an interesting story. It's almost like a zombie story, but it's about this small, maybe like a county in Wisconsin where recently deceased people have like come back to life, and some of them seem totally normal, but some of them have started acting strange. And we're following like the local sheriff and her family and stuff like that. It's really good. I liked this one, and this is one where I will definitely be picking up more issues of that. I also read Outcast by Robert Kirkman. This came out in 2015. This is the first volume of Darkness Surrounds Him. This I also really loved. This was super excellent. This is like an exorcism story where we're following, oh boy, just like a lot of really morally gray characters. Our main character is like somebody who's really been ostracized by his community because of something he's done wrong, and you get the feeling that like maybe he's not actually to blame for this, but you don't really know the details of what's happened. And there is a priest who is like taking him along to these exorcisms. So they're like this buddy cop duo now. This is another one where it's like, ooh, ASAP. I need to pick up more issues. Then I read The Echo Wife by Sarah Gailey. This came out in 2021. And this is like a interesting, I don't know if you would call it a sci-fi thriller or maybe a thriller with sci-fi elements, but it's a good blend of the two things, because this is about a scientist named Evelyn who is working with clones, and she is cloning human beings. But this kind of backfires on her when she finds out that her husband has made an illegal clone of herself and is like having an affair with her. So like when we get into the story, that's where Evelyn's at. Not really many people know about this because it is illegal what he's doing. And this clone calls her up and says that the husband is dead, and now Evelyn has to deal with like the repercussions of all this, and knowing that this clone is not supposed to exist and all these sorts of things, you know. It's really a whole can of worms. Now I've read 3 of Sarah Gailey's books. I've really enjoyed every single one of them. They've all been so strange and different, and I really can't wait to see like what they put out next. They really keep me guessing. Just very strange, like genre blending, interesting stuff. It's always a treat to read one of their books. Next, I'd like to tell you about The Chain by Adrian McKinty. This came out in 2019, and this is a thriller with an interesting premise. This is about a woman named Rachel. And Rachel gets this call from another woman saying, "We've abducted your daughter, and now you, in turn, have to abduct another child. And if you follow these directions, eventually your daughter will be returned." So it's like this thing, this like kidnapping ring where the person abducts a child, then the abducted child's parents abduct a child, and then those abducted child's parents abduct a child, and then it's like the first abducted child gets to go free. And then there's also, of course, money involved, because why else would you be doing this? Very twisty and turny. I would say my entertainment level when reading this, very high. However, some of it was a little bit cheesy, and it felt a little bit over the top. And I feel like sometimes people get upset when I say things like this, but this is a book written by a man. The main character is a woman. There are many, many books like this, right? But there are some times when this happens, and I feel like a man writing a woman just really doesn't know how a woman works correctly. And I feel like this might be one of those books. There's just like things that the main character in this does, and it really does feel like it's a man being like, that's what a woman would like, right? And it's like, what? No, ew. So I don't want to, give anything away, but it just, some of it's kind of weird. And also there's an ex-husband who calls everyone like sweetie and like kisses people. And it's like, I can't imagine an ex kissing me and like being like, yes, this is normal. Just like, I don't know, some of that stuff is a little bit strange. But my entertainment level, very high. I'd actually really like to check out, I think he has a book called The Island that I've seen around, like I've seen the cover of. I think I'd like to like definitely check that out, but I don't know. Maybe like the cheese factor, a little bit high. But also entertainment level, also very high. That's just the way it is, okay? That's just the way it is, sweetie. The next book I would like to tell you about is Inferno, a memoir of motherhood and madness by Catherine Cho. This came out in 2020, and this is a non-fiction memoir about postpartum psychosis, a topic I find very, very interesting, very sad, very interesting. Luckily, Catherine was with people who loved her and cared about her, were keeping a close eye on her and her child. They were able to see the signs of this and have her admitted quickly so that no harm came to her or her child. And very interestingly, this happened when her son was almost like 3 months old, which typically postpartum psychosis has a earlier onset than this. So this is something that once in a while people have after giving birth. I wouldn't say it's similar to postpartum depression because it's not. It is a form of psychosis. I mean, what I think is really interesting about this is Catherine talks about some of the like delusions, hallucinations, and things that she was thinking when she was having this psychotic break. And it is very strange, very interesting, I'm sure, very personal too. So yeah, she is Korean American, so it talks about like her culture a lot, which I thought was very interesting, and I really liked this. I think my one complaint is that I wish that there would have been more information about postpartum psychosis in general, just a little bit more. I mean, I know that this is a memoir, but I would have liked to just have more, maybe like statistics, data, details, stuff like that. Just some things. That's it. Next, on to Echo by Thomas Olde Heuvelt. This came out in 2022. This is the book that I DNF'd. In this half of the month, I read almost 300 pages of it, and I was like, why am I doing this to myself? Oh boy, this book. I really thought I would love this. I'm terribly disappointed that I didn't like this. This is about Nick, who is mountaineering, and him and his climbing partner fall into a crevice, and he makes it out, but his climbing partner does not. His climbing partner dies. But when Nick comes out, he's got like trauma to his face. However, it doesn't, the like wounds to his face don't seem to match up with the story he tells. And his just like story about what happened on the mountain doesn't really make sense. and his boyfriend is trying to piece this together, and they're trying to work just on their relationship, which I'm sure is hard when anyone in a relationship goes through a serious, like, life-threatening injury and recovery and all that sort of stuff. Anyway, right? And then, like, Nick won't take off this face wrapping, even though, like, it should be healed, and, like, it's very mysterious. So maybe you can see why I kept reading for so long, trying to figure out, like, what was happening with Nick and his fucking face and all this stuff. And then I just got to a point where I figured out what was happening, and then it's like, well, what are we gonna do about it? And then that part was taking so long that I just really didn't care. I still don't know. And I'm fine with it. I'm gonna go to my grave never knowing what they did about Nick's face. I did read Just Like Mother, which also came out in 2022. This book, holy fuck. I loved this book. This one maybe kind of biffed the ending a little bit, just because the rest was, like, so weird. And the ending maybe wasn't as weird as I wanted it to be, but this was really so good otherwise. This is about Maeve, who grew up in a very strange family, and she ended up being adopted and losing contact with a cousin who she had, like, grown up in this strange family with until she became adopted. Now she's in her 30s and she finds her cousin again, and she's so ecstatic. She's so happy. And her life has been kind of a roller coaster. Maybe hasn't exactly ended up the way that she thought it would, and she kind of expected her cousins to be similar. However, her cousin has been, like, strangely successful, and she's happy for her cousin, but also her cousin's, like, been successful, but the company is kind of strange. The company her cousin has is kind of strange. It really was good. It really was so good, and I'm just thinking about all the good things about it, and I really think that you should try this book. It really is a good one. A very sinister little book. I loved this. It was very strange. It was very strange, and I just really wish that maybe the end had been, like, more drawn out, or I don't know, a little more crazy maybe, but it was still so good. I also read another nonfiction. This is Working Stiff by Judy Melinek and TJ Mitchell. This came out in 2014, and this is about Judy Melinek's first few years as a medical examiner. She does forensic pathology, so she's talking about working on cases, her schooling a little bit, her family life at that time, working in New York during 9/11. Ooh, that part was really eerie. Yeah, that I think affected me more than I expected it to. Especially, she's talking about, like, seeing a plane in a place it shouldn't have been, like, on her way to work that morning and stuff like that. It was very eerie. She talks about working with the police and things like that. Yeah, very interesting, like, medical nonfiction. If you're into that sort of thing, I liked it a lot. All right, we're almost to the end here. Okay, I also read Blood on the Tracks volumes 5 and 6. These came out in these were published in English, at least, in, I don't know, maybe like 2019, something like that. Fairly recently. And this is about a young boy, Seiichi, who has a terribly overbearing mother, but she's very strange. She's also just very strange. And it's one of those books where she hasn't really done anything that's, like, outright bad, right? Because then we could be like, this person is a bad person. You need to get away from this person. And she's just kind of odd. and she's overbearing and overprotective and stifling, and so it's hard for Seiichi to distance himself from his mother, because is she actually doing anything that's wrong? Yeah, I've really loved this so far. Every time I read another one, it just is, it makes me uncomfortable. Deeply uncomfortable. And I know I talk about this every time too, but the author spends a lot of time focusing on facial expressions and the detail, and I think that's also what makes this so fucking haunting. And I stayed up late reading one night, and then Zach and I went and like had breakfast together the next morning, and I just kept thinking about this one part and like this boy's face, and I just like, it was like, oh, I just had to like talk to him about it, because it was like, oh, I just can't stop thinking about this face and this thing. Jesus, it's like, ugh. Okay, and then last book I'd like to talk about is Everything's Eventual by Stephen King. This is a collection of short stories. I think some of my favorites are The Man in the Black Suit, All That You Loved Will Be Carried Away, Everything's Eventual, 1408 is very creepy, Lucky Quarter. I know I've read this one before, but I'm thinking about it and I'm like, did I ever read it? Did I ever read more than like just the first story with the autopsy room 4, I think it's called? I don't know, because that's the only one I seem to remember. So I don't know. I feel pretty lukewarm on this one. There are a few stories that I liked in here, but it's like, I liked the ones that I liked. None of them I really loved. None of them are like, hell yeah, I fucking love that short story. I guess I liked Everything's Eventual. That's a pretty good one. But the ones that I didn't like, really didn't like them. Really could leave them. You know what I mean? So, I don't know. Really lukewarm on that one. It's just fine, I guess. That's that. That wraps this shit up. Wow. I think I did pretty good considering I had 15 books here to tell you about. So that, yeah, like I said, that wraps things up. That's what I read for the last 2 weeks of Escape the Readathon. I have vlogs out if you'd like to watch my process through that. We don't know the results until tomorrow, so I am waiting to finish my last week of the vlog until like we've got the results, which don't come out until June 2nd. So I do have to wait on that to finish that up. So hopefully I am not too, oh god, I'm just so bad at editing things recently. Maybe like the past 2 years. That is what I have for you today. I'd love to know if you've read any of these, what you thought about them, what your favorite, most precious-ist books are that you read this month. I'd love to know if there's anything you want me to check out. Now that I'm nearing the end of my Read What You Won't challenge, I'm going to be very cautiously buying books again. Oh boy. But listen, I do have a book haul coming up here that's not cautious at all. Ugh. I'm a little embarrassed, honestly. It's like, I gave a mouse a cookie, and I'm the mouse. Anyway, check out my Linktree for all my social media, my bingo, affiliate links, things like that. But that's it. That's all I have for you. So I will see you guys later. Goodbye.